Olá, olá, e falámos e ouvimos o que tem estado a ser feito aqui no Portugal Air Summit, no domínio das startups, nomeadamente o que os vários jovens têm apresentado e ouvimos-los aqui. Agora, com a pandemia, como nós sabemos, houve uma enorme crise económica em alguns setores. Obviamente que o setor da aviação, por força das circunstâncias, foi um dos mais afetados naqueles 2 anos, tem tido uma recuperação, ainda assim, com toda a economia com problemas. O que é certo é que ao longo de vários meses ouvimos falar, e continuamos a ouvir, do Plano de Recuperação e Resiliência. Aliás, em Portugal, como nós sabemos, existe um grande foco, exatamente para saber por onde é que esses fundos europeus vão ser canalizados e de que modo é que vão ser supervisionados para ver se desta vez não há afastamentos como aconteceram anteriormente, infelizmente, e aliás existem inúmeros processos judiciais a decorrer exatamente por causa do desvio de fundos europeus. Desta vez realmente há um controle muito mais apertado relativamente a toda esta questão. E há que olhar para esses fundos, o Plano de Recuperação e Resiliência, o famoso PRR, que está a ser canalizado e vai ser canalizado em toda a Europa, que são milhares de milhões de euros, para este setor, a aeronáutica, e olhamos para a área espacial. E junta-se este Portugal Air Summit por videochamada, Chiara Manfletti, COO da Neuraspace. Hello, Chiara. Welcome to Portugal Air Summit.
Hello.
Hello.
And thank you for having me here.
Thank you. You can do your presentation.
Thank you very much. So, I'll talk to you today about Neuraspace and what we do in the frame of PRR and how we will contribute, of course, to developing a space traffic management solution for space. But before I start, I do want to talk about the team a little bit. Neuraspace is a company which is 2 years old. We have envisioned of doing great things, but you can't do great things without a great team. And of course, I think Portugal is fully aware of Nuno Sebastião, CEO of FITSAI. Nuno came to see me 2 years ago when I was still at Portugal Space, and he asked me if the topic of space debris and managing the traffic in space was a topic for business development. And at the time I said to him it was. And so he decided to found the company at which today I work. The reason why I'm showing you this picture is that it also shows, if you will, the 3 pillars that we have at the company. One is AI and machine learning. The other one is flight dynamics, or the dynamics of objects in space. And then we have software development. So what is the problem that we're trying to solve? I hope you can see the video well. In this video, you see that there's many objects flying around the Earth at different orbits, so different altitudes from the surface of the Earth. And these objects are both pieces of waste, of debris, as well as active objects. Now, the problem is that unlike when you're driving in a car and you see a car coming at you, in space, objects travel at much higher speed. We don't know exactly where objects are. So we don't have sufficient data to really avoid collisions from happening, which today is not a huge problem, but it will become a huge problem because the number of objects is increasing dramatically. This is actually not a bad thing. Why? Because indeed, as our wonderful moderator was saying, the space sector has been recognized, and I salute Portugal for doing this as well, as a sector of economic growth. So the number of companies that are putting satellites in orbit is increasing dramatically and will increase by 15-fold by the year 2030. Today we have about 6,000 objects in space. In 2030 we will have about 100,000 satellites and objects. The problem, as I said, is that we don't know exactly where these objects are, especially also the waste. So the risk is not completely quantifiable. And because we don't know exactly where they are, operator teams, so the people who operate the satellites, are having to put massive amounts of effort in preparing for events, for collision events, potential collision events, whereas there aren't that many that are happening. So from an human resources point of view and for operators, there's a lot of expense that will continue growing into making sure that their operations is efficient. So what does Neuraspace want to do? Neuraspace wants to make this problem go away by giving clarity as to where objects are and avoiding collisions from happening and helping operators maneuver around space. Now, let me explain to you a little bit why, of course, this is important. From an economic point of view, the space economy is poised to grow to be $1 trillion by the year 2040. However, this market can only happen if we are sustainable and if we are resilient in space. If a satellite is destroyed by space debris, obviously it doesn't bring any profitability. It will create more objects in space. And of course, it's going to be harder and harder for us to use space. So we have to make sure that we're sustainable in space. And this project that the Portuguese government has accepted and Neuraspace is leading is going to do exactly that. So the future of the space economy relies on the success of us managing our space traffic. In addition to that, the space debris market is going to be in and of itself a big market. And of course, I always say Portugal wants to have a piece of this market. And on top, Portugal wants to lead part of this market. And again, the PR project that we are going to be leading is going to be a key to this element. And lastly, we all know, and this contribution is going to increase, that space is a cornerstone of the sovereignty of nation and contributes widely to the success of the European economy. Today and in the future, the European economy is going to be 20% reliant on space. So we must secure space activities, and this is what we are doing. So what is the Neuraspace solution all about? What we do is we ingest data from different sources. We fuse this data together. We examine this data using AI and machine learning to understand if a collision in orbit is truly going to happen or not. If we know that a collision is going to happen, as I said before, what we then do is that we automatically provide a solution to operators as to how they should best maneuver. And why do I talk about best maneuvers? If you're a telecommunications operator, or if you're an Earth observation operator, the service that you provide to your clients is fundamentally different. And therefore, there's going to be moments where you don't want to maneuver because it will cause your antenna to misalign and not be able to provide your service, for example, right? So we have to develop maneuvering strategies in order to make sure that the maneuvers that are made are optimal for the operator in place. Finally, and this is the big vision, we do want to provide a software solution, and you see here a little bit of what our vision is, a software solution that is a virtual assistant, meaning that operator teams have a team member, but a virtual team member that is taking care of the problem 24/7, 365 days a week. Neuraspace, and this virtual team member is a she. She provides insight into the problem, and she tells and alerts operators when there's a problem coming and gives them this advice that we were suggesting. Now, just a couple of elements regarding Neuraspace. We've released our product to the market in 2022. It was a very bare bones product, and through PRR, we will be making sure that this product will be much better, and I will tell you a little bit in a second on how we're going to do that. As I mentioned to you, the promise is that we reduce efforts in HR that have to be invested by operators. We are backed by a European venture capitalist fund, Amila, which I also want to thank for their vote of confidence, and obviously vote of confidence by the Portuguese government in allocating the PRR project to us. We have 2 patents filing, which is very important. And through PRR, we will be doing a lot more innovation. Today, we already have a number of customers that are looking at our product. They are pilot customers. And these pilot customers will have 357 satellites in orbit in the next 3 years. Now, again, a little bit about PRR. The total funding is the 25 million euro, as I mentioned to you. You know that the PRR is for a duration of 3 years, and we are now kicking off the project. We are working together, of course, with top universities in Portugal because it's important to raise the talent and do innovation, as I was mentioning before. So we're working with Nova, with Técnico, with the University of Coimbra. We're also working with GMV, a leading company in space globally, and with the Instituto Pedro Nunes in Coimbra as well. So what are the outputs of PRR in the project itself? One of the major elements and the reason why we actually submitted the proposal to the Portuguese government was to establish radars. We will be setting up radars. One of them is going to be in Pontessor. The other one is going to be outside of Portugal and probably Europe. Why? Because with radars, we will have our own capability of looking up in space and detecting objects in space and understanding where these objects are. There aren't that many radars and radar data providers globally, so this will also put the company in a very unique position, and Portugal in a very unique position, both at a European level and a global level. Just to give you an idea, the ambitions that we have is to be able to detect a grape 2.5 centimeters at a distance of about 1,000 kilometers. So it's detecting something quite small at a large distance. What will we then do in addition to setting up radars? We will be looking at risk through prediction. So we're going to be developing further AI and machine learning models to do risk prediction, to really understand what the risk of collision is happening to different satellites, sizes, types, et cetera, et cetera. We will be investing in risk mitigation, of course, through the maneuvering suggestions that I was mentioning to you. Again, using AI and machine learning, but also by improving physical models that are in place. And finally, one of the things which is also very important is that there is going to be lots of data that is going to be presented to operators and to customers, and it's always very important to be able to provide this information in a way which is easily visual and can be easily absorbed. So we're going to be investing also a lot of innovation in visualization. And lastly, we will be developing, as I said to you before, there's going to be lots of innovation happening. We will be creating the body of knowledge around what we call is space traffic management. And Portugal is going to be a center of excellence for space traffic management thanks to this project. And we will be creating talent and spreading the knowledge about it. A couple of KPIs linked to this PRR project. We aim to have a turnover of 9 million euros by 2024 and of 100 million by 2030. To put this a bit in perspective regards the ambition of Portugal in space that was drafted, the strategy that was drafted, Portugal Space 2030, the ambitions that we have through this project will contribute 20% to the goals that were drafted in that strategy. We have already raised some private investor funds, as I mentioned. We will be raising more. And as I also mentioned already, we will be doing much innovation and we will be writing many papers. And this will be about 4% of papers in the topic of AI and machine learning worldwide. So again, we will be leading this new segment of innovation. A little focus point on machine learning and AI. We believe that in the future, we will be seeing autonomous satellites in orbit. What do we mean by this? Satellites which are goal-oriented, and they understand that they have to fulfill a goal, and they autonomously adapt their operations to fulfill that goal. So, if you will, intelligence satellites. Now, this is the long-term goal. It is about autonomy in orbit. And I believe, however, that this autonomy in orbit will come sooner than autonomous vehicles on ground. For now, of course, the company is focusing on augmenting human capacity. And through PRR, we will continue on this path, and we will be working towards also autonomous satellite. Some of the things that we can do with AI and machine learning are reducing false positives and false negatives, which is really important. If you know that a collision is not coming, then you don't have to put the effort into preparing it. You don't have to maneuver. You won't have disruption in your services that you're providing. Already today, we are showing that we can, through AI and machine learning, provide 22% less false positives in terms of low-risk events and 2% less false positive high-risk events. The other thing we could do with AI and machine learning is predicting trends. And predicting trends is important because you can know earlier on if something in orbit is going to happen or not. And this will then allow you to have 20% more planning time, which is obviously always helpful because there's a significant number of elements to do when you want to then maneuver a spacecraft. Now, I mentioned the radars and data. This is an extremely important element. You can only do AI and machine learning successfully if you have good and significant amounts of data. So I cannot emphasize enough how important this project is, and especially the radar contributions will be for the company and for the whole topic of space traffic management. We do data fusion for risk identification, for risk assessment, for reducing uncertainties, and for maneuver automation. And you see two elements, both under risk identification and uncertainty reduction, both the Neuraspace radar data as well as the Neuraspace catalog that we will be able to establish with the PRR project in order to contribute significantly to, as I said, the whole issue of guiding traffic in space. Now, with that, I have actually come to an end of my presentation. I hope you've been inspired by this talk into learning more about what happens in space. And I hope to be on the stage perhaps next year again in person to give you an update of where we are with the project and how indeed the PRR project has contributed to the economic recovery of Portugal through the space sector. Thank you very much for your attention and a wonderful continuation of the event.